Hey you guys, this is the Natalie Show.
And today we're going to be playing some games and talking about Mark Twain.
After reading up on him, I've come to really enjoy his satire and overall humor.
Right? He's so good at it. I feel like humor is just this unifying and eye-opening element of criticism that allows us to see our faults without offense.
Wow, yeah, I really see that in his notorious jumping frog story. I found the satire pretty interesting since you can really tell what's going on in his life through it.
Wait, what do you mean by that? I've never really thought about how his life relates to this story.
Well, recently I watched this documentary about Twain. I learned a lot about his life and the different stages of his humor. When Twain first started his writing career, he was ambitious and optimistic. Everything was going right for him. Even though he had his critiques of the world, he approached it in a much less aggressive way than he would in his later works. Because of this approach, people received his message without really taking any offense from it.
I guess the better times in his life actually did affect his approach to satire. On the first read-through, I thought it seemed like a lighthearted, entertaining story, but once I delved further into it, I found his true criticisms. I especially liked how he criticized the Northerners' prejudice towards countrymen.
Yeah, he creates a lot of irony, having the stereotypical hillbilly take advantage of the narrator's politeness by keeping him stuck listening to a never-ending story. Ultimately, the hillbilly outsmarts the man who claims he's better than him. That idea of being better is a major factor of this plot overall. Pride and ego drive Smiley to make his bets in the first place.
And that hubris leads to his downfall, or at least the loss of his bet on his frog Daniel. You know, ego has always and will always be a motivation for humanity. I mean, even Mark Twain couldn't avoid his pride. I think since his approach to satire here was so kind, his readers' egos weren't affected by his criticisms. His humor allowed his points to get through to them.
Not only does his message about pride and ego reflect his later life, but it also reflects the society we live in and the modern criticisms many have. It kind of reminds me of this article I read. Basically, it explains that some people want to distinguish themselves as being different or even superior to the common people. These are the targets of American humorists, like Twain, even though he is, by nature, the same as the people he criticizes.
It's crazy how those themes come full circle to our modern society. I've been watching a lot of South Park lately, and you know it has a ton of satire, especially about pride. A lot of it's found in one of the main characters, Eric Cartman's episodes, where he orchestrates elaborate, often cruel plans believing he's a genius, only for them to backfire spectacularly due to his own arrogance.
I think I've seen some of those episodes. They're so funny. I think that, like Twain, the writers of South Park use humor as this tool to get us to bring our walls down and be open to criticisms that we'd normally reject. I know South Park sometimes hits some pretty deep topics with its satire though. Again, like Twain. His Lowest Animal essay, for example, really gets into the nitty-gritty of human nature.
That's actually my favorite one of Twain's works. In it, he uses a satire to reveal the harsh truths of humanity, like war, greed, and violence. It really reflects Twain's own disillusionment with society by that point.
Yeah, I noticed that Twain became much more pessimistic in his satire after he experienced the loss of his children, his financial hardships through overspending and failed investments, and the corruption he saw in the world, especially during the Gilded Age.
I feel like the piece reveals not only the hidden truths about the world, but also those within himself. The essay is made up of the narrator's accounts of various quote-unquote experiments. He makes many observations comparing humans to animals, prompting readers to rethink the animal hierarchy and confront their pride. He creates a lot of satire through the exaggeration of his conclusion that humans are the lowest animals, but in reality, he's just trying to highlight human cruelty.
I like how his experiment on religious peoples was especially ironic, since he reveals how humans are able to commit atrocities in the name of religion, which is obviously foreign to animals. He makes the point that our faith is supposed to be used for acceptance rather than violence. I feel like Twain's exaggeration of humans being the lowest animal starkly contrasts with his earlier works, because he aims to unsettle the readers rather than undermining his criticisms for entertainment.
The way Twain harshly presents his criticisms in that essay reminds me a lot of BoJack Horseman. Even though it follows an anthropomorphic horse through his depressing life, I feel like it criticizes a lot of the deepest truths about humanity through heavy and targeted satire. Honestly, the only reason I still watch it is that it's funny, because sometimes it hits home a little too hard. I really see some of those criticisms within myself, but the only reason they're able to get through to me is the humor.
All this to say, humor is an all-encompassing tool that can be used in all forms of media to not only entertain, but also reveal profound truths within society and within ourselves.
Wow, and I think that's a great way to leave it off.
Yep, well,
see you guys.